Hello, hello. Can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me? Well, don't feel like we have anybody here today, but the show goes on. Now, I'll be talking about a few things that happened in history, and mainly the syphilis study, not just the Tuskegee, but also Norway, right? Now, I'll be reading from a article from the BMJ.com. And this is just to let you know that this really happened. This is not conspiracy theory. And it says from 1891 to 1910, Peter Boyce, professor of dermatology in the University of Oslo, practically forbade the use of mercury in the treatment of syphilitic cases in his wards, believing that mercury generally interfered with the patient's own defense mechanism, which he thought was better than the methods, right? So in the period mentioned, approximately 2,000 cases of syphilis were dealt with on these lines. In his words, and a number of years later, his successor, E. Bussard, carried out an investigation to discover how their cases had fared as a result. Bussard 1929 published an article of which a free translation of the title is The Fate of the Syphilitic Who Have Received No Specific Treatment. So we cannot talk about Tuskegee before mentioning what happened in Norway. Now, I do not know if this happened to the indigenous population or it happened to the white Norwegians. I do not know. I don't have that information right now. Now, let's get into Tuskegee, right? So I'm here to tell you that we have not learned anything from history. And before we start, I'll be reading from the book Medical Apartheid by Harriet A. Washington. And we'd like to thank this woman for this brilliant book. And this book is from 2006 and it is Answer Book. Now, when she was writing this book, she did get opposition. And as the title says, the kill the messenger, right? Now, let us pick it up from here. I was elated when a professor at a U.S. medical school summoned me to her office, explaining that she wanted to hear all about the book I was writing. Ensconced in her chair, I eagerly began to describe my work, only to be cut off before I had completely completed the first sentence. Bolting upright in her chair, she vehemently informed me that the topic of this book was too taboo. It's a terrible thing that you are doing. You are going to make African Americans afraid of medical research and physicians. You cannot write this book. As she glared at me, her face became contorted with anger, suffused with blood, and her breathing grew rapid. For a moment, I was stunned into silence because nothing had prepared me for a reaction. After all, freedom of speech and academic freedom are sacred in this country. I was also a bit surprised that a white academic whose discussion and syllabus had evinced no interest or expertise in the matter should lecture me on experienced African American medical writer about health communication with African Americans. She proceeded to inform me that there had been no medical research utilizing African Americans before the Tuskegee syphilis study. Certainly not in the antebellum past. And when I asked her how she knew this, she commented, sorry, can you prove that there was? When I responded simply yes. So definitely this woman had some opposition to write this book, Medical Apartheid. And may the Most High bless her and her family because this woman has done us a fantastic job. And we are here to witness what is going to happen to us in today's time because history have not taught us nothing. Now, let us move on to the syphilis study. In 1932, the U.S. Public Health Service inaugurated its study of syphilis in the untreated Negro male. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study, which promised free medical care to about 600 sick, desperately poor sharecroppers in Macon County, Alabama. The study was designed, the PHS explained, to study the progression of syphilis in black men. Scientists had long claimed that the venereal disease manifested differently in blacks than in whites, and PHS scientists decided to document this by finding a pool of infected black men, withholding treatment from them, and then charting the progression of symptoms and disorder. But the PHS lied to the subjects, convincing them that they are being treated, not studied. So they lied, right? I can't see my comment. Oh, good Lord. Oh, good Lord. I cannot see my comment and I do not know what to do. See with me, people, because this is my first time. So I do not know what I'm doing. Let me see. Okay. Oh my God, people, I don't know what is going on. It's my first time doing a live, and I do not know what I'm doing. So please be with me right now. Let us continue. Okay, now. So they lied to the black men. They lied to the subject, convincing them that they are being treated, not studied. When the men died, the physicians, researchers determined to autopsy them in order to trace precisely the ravages of the disease in their bodies. Among other things, the PHS expected to validate its belief in a specific racial dimorphism of syphilis, whereas the disease was thought to do its worst damage to the neurological system and brains of whites. It was thought to wreak its worst havoc on the cardiovascular system of blacks, clearing their relatively primitive and underdeveloped brains. Now, these are doctors. Mind you, these are doctors, right? Now, they lied to these people who were poor. They were sharecroppers and they lied to them, right? And they give them this bad blood as they call it. Now, let's get into the apology, right? Because we're going to do this briefly. On May 16, 1997, a quarter of a century after the Tuskegee study ended, President William Jefferson Clinton formally apologized for the study in a dignified White House ceremony that allowed the near eight survivors and their families to join the activists and historians who had campaigned their cases. Their cause to the survivors, to the wives and family members, the children, and the grandchildren, I say what you mean. No power on earth can give you back the lives lost, the pain suffered, the years of internal torment and anguish. What was done cannot be undone, but we can end the silence. We can stop turning our heads away. We can look at you in the eyes and finally say, on behalf of the American people, that the United States government did what the United States government did was shameful, and I am sorry. government there do have our apology as well. To our African American citizens, I am sorry that your federal government orchestrated a study so clearly racist that can never be allowed to happen again. And that's what they say. That is what the president said. And Bill Clinton, it should never happen again. Well, let me take you over to Guatemala. So we had a talk about Norway, that something similar happened in Norway. So now we talk about the Tuskegee experiment briefly, and we spoke about the apology. Because as the president said, um, that it can never be allowed to happen again. But listen to this, because around the same time when they were doing the Tuskegee experiment, they were doing one in Guatemala. Now, let me read this one from the BBC website, dated the 30th of August, 2011. U.S. scientists knew Guatemala study. U.S. scientists knew Guatemala syphilis study test unethical. So they knew, but they didn't care, right? U.S. government scientists who infected Guatemalans with syphilis and gonorrhea as part of a study knew they were violating ethical rules a U.S. presidential panel had said. Let us continue with the shame. The researchers infected hundreds of prisoners, psychiatric patients, and sex workers during the 1940s to study the effect of penicillin, right? So we have not learned nothing. None of the Guatemalans were informed, but many of the same scientists had sought consent from participants in an early study in the US. So they wanted to do it in the US, and it looked like nobody wanted to do it. Dr. Amy Gutmann, head of the Presidential Commission for the Study of Bioethical Issues, called the research a shameful piece of medical history. Yeah, right. It is important that we accurately document this clearly unethical historical judgment injustice. We do this to honor the victims, he said in a statement. It's morally wrong. This is what the Guatemala president has to say. Now, we told the BBC that its government would make a formal apology to the Guatemalan people as local doctors had also been involved in US funded programs, right? So local doctors were involved in getting Guatemalans to be a part of this program, to use them as imitators. So history is teaching us. So we learn about Norway, the Tuskegee, and it happened in Guatemala also. We want to share this tragedy with the whole world instead. The commission said some 5,500 Guatemalans were involved in all the research that took place between 1946 and 1948. Of these, some 1,300 were deliberately infected with syphilis, gonorrhea, or other sexually transmitted disease. And of that group, only about 700 received some sort of a treatment. According to documents, the Commission had studied at least 83 of the 5,500 subjects had died by the end of 1963. The Commission was unable to say whether any of these deaths were caused directly or indirectly by deliberate infection. But Dr. Gutmann lambasted those responsible for the research. Those involved in the study failed to show a minimal respect for human rights and morality in the conduct of research, she said. In her concluding remarks to the panel, she said, many of the actions were previously wrong, and those individuals behind the study were morally culpable to their degree. Civilizations can be judged by the way they treat their most vulnerable. We fail to see that covenant, he said. So they fail to protect their most vulnerable people. Now, we have a section here where US President Barack Obama set up the commission when the research first came to light last year. And this paper is from, this article is from 2011, right? So he also apologized to his Guatemalan counterpart, Alvaro Colmo, saying the act ran contrary to American values. The commission is due to publish first report next month outlining the historical facts. So right here we see where history keeps repeating itself, right? We've got untreated individuals in Norway, right? We've got the Tuskegee experiment, and where they were infected deliberately with syphilis. And we've got Guatemala, where they deliberately infected these people with syphilis also. And it is absolutely shameful that all they can say is we apologize for what has happened. And these things keep happening in history. And we keep apologizing and not making people accountable. No, this is another article, and this is from The Guardian, but this one is very touching. And it is entitled Guatemalan Victims of US Syphilis Study Still Haunted by the Devil's Experiment. So, Martha Orellana said she was playing with friends at the orphanage when they summoned her, Orellana to the infirmary, waiting Waiting for her were several doctors she had never seen before, tall men with fair complexions whose who what she guessed was English, plus a Guatemalan doctor. They had syringes and the bottles. They ordered her to lay down and opened her legs. Embarrassed, she locked her knees together and shook her head. The Guatemalan medic slapped her cheek and she began to cry. I did what I was told, she recalled. Today, the 9-year-old girl is a roomy-eyed 70-year-old grandmother, great-grandmother, but the anguish of the moment endured. It was all the pain, the humiliation, the misery. It was 1946, and orphans in Guatemala City, along with prisoners, military conscripts, and prostitutes, had been selected for a medical experiment which would torment many, and remain secret for more than 6 decades. Right? Oh my God, that is absolutely ridiculous. Now, listen to how it came to life. Susan Reverby, a professor at Wellesley College in the US, uncovered the experiment while researching the Tuskegee syphilis study, in which hundreds of African American men were left untreated for 40 years from the 1930s. The Guatemalan study went further by deliberately infecting its subjects. Not only did it violate the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm, but it echoed Nazi crimes exposed around the same time as the Nuremberg trials. Victims remain largely unknown, but The Guardian has interviewed the families of the 3 survivors identified so far by Guatemala, right? So right here, we can tell that we have not learned nothing. We have not learned nothing, and we continue to fall for the same trap, to fall for the same thing over and over. The devil is a one-trick pony, right? Let us go over now to 1970s. In the 1970s, and we have what is said to be the swine flu outbreak in America. Now you got to understand, there's nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun. So let us pick it up from here. In the late winter of 1976, a completely novel strain of influenza was causing hundreds of respiratory infections at Fort Dix, an army post located in central New Jersey. Initially, this virus appeared to be closely genetically related to the 1980 flu pandemic that killed over 1 million people globally. A pandemic pandemic that share the very same port date, that share the very same port date as one, its point of origin. These striking coincidences, along with the virus, sustained person-to-person spread, prompted global public health officials to start planning for what could be conceivably verging into a series of large and deadly outbreaks, if not an actual pandemic in the upcoming winter. But listen to this part. The World Health Organization adopted a cautious wait-and-see policy to monitor the virus pattern of disease and to track the number of emerging infections. President Gerald Ford administration embarked on a zealous campaign to vaccinate every American with brisk efficiency in late March. President Ford announced in a press conference the government's plan to vaccinate every man, woman, and child in the United States. What do you see happening today? So it just goes to show you that history should be our teacher. We should learn from history. Now, it says emergency legislation for the national swine flu immunization program was signed shortly. It was signed. Thereafter, on April 15, 1976, and 6 months later, high-profile photos of celebrities and politicians, political figures receiving the flu jab appeared in the media. Even the President Ford himself was photographed in his office receiving a shot from the White House doctor. No, just a small outbreak. And the president at the time wanted to vaccinate every American with brisk efficiency, right? No, within 10 months, nearly 25% of the US population, or 45 million citizens, was vaccinated. But guess what? Serious problems persist throughout the process due to the urgency of creating new immunizations for a novel virus the government used an unauthentic live virus for the vaccine instead of an inactivated or kill form, increasing the probability of adverse side effects, right? So people started to get sick because this vaccine was rushed. Now the question is, what do we see happening in today's world? So you see, we haven't learned much from history. And those of us who do not learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That is what is going to happen. So you can go and look for the swine flu outbreak in the 1970s in the United States and realize that history should be our teacher. We should learn from history, learn from past mistakes, so we do not make those mistakes in the future. But what do they say? It's pure conspiracy theory. That's all they say. No, in today's world, we got an outbreak, and they would like us to believe that this outbreak is very, very infectious. And I've got a lot of questions. Just how infectious is this current outbreak, right? You got people panicking, people fighting each other because they're not wearing a mask, right? How infectious is this outbreak that we have to be fighting each other? Now, I've got some articles for you to read and to consider because we need to ask important questions and connect the dots, right? Now, we've got an article from the Lancet, and this article is dated November 2nd, 1996. Now, what we're trying to do, we're trying to establish the fact that the technology exists, that this outbreak is a genetically, is it genetically bioweapon. Is that the word? It's a bioweapon, and it kills people based on their genetic origin, right? That is what we're trying to prove right now. Let's get into it. And it is titled Germ Warfare Unless we keep our guard up. Now, October 1996 ended with a worsening of the intertribal dispute around the borders of the year. The announcement that already one-fifth of the human genome is already on the internet. Let's read it again. Now, this is from 1996. It said, the announcement that already one-fifth of the human genome is already on the internet. So it is there for anyone to go and look at, for anyone to use, right? Let's keep it moving. And a warning from the World Medical Association about new weapons targeted against specific individuals or populations. Rwanda's tribe and the people of former Yugoslavia, among others, are proved quite capable of bilateral slaughter without the help of molecular biologists. However, in the 1990s, a concern has slowly surfaced about biological weapons with selective ethnic targets. Now, this article is coming from the Lancet, right? Volume 348, number 9036, and it is dated November 2nd, 1996. I want no one to say I'm spreading conspiracy theories. No, let's keep it going. Anyone voicing such concerns at a meeting of a molecular biologist or infectious disease specialist risks being scorned, right? So at the time when people were talking about this, it was such a taboo subject. Nobody wanted to talk about it. They view them in scorn. That's the stuff of sci-fi, science fiction. What is it? Good question, right? Because that is what people would like you to believe, that this is pure conspiracy theory. This is the stuff of science fiction. But how real can this be? Can this happen? Can this happen? Can they create a weapon that can attack us based on our ethnic background? Do they have the technology to do so? Let us continue. Thomas Bafari, Thomas Bafari, a neurologist and neurochemist at the University of Stockholm, writing in the 1993 yearbook of the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, notes the possibility that genetic weapons might be developed in the wake of increased knowledge about the human genome and genetic diversity. He wanted the 1996 review of the Biological Weapons Convention to reassert that the convention covers genetic weapons. Now, he's not alone. In Monterey, Switzerland, last March, a symposium backed by the International Committee of the Red Cross recommended that serious consideration now be given to the implications of weapons developed on the basis of knowledge of the human genome and of genetic engineering. Right? So this is very possible. Now let us continue. Barbara H. Rosenberg is a U.S. academic with a special interest in the BWC, speaking at the conference on infectious disease monitoring in Bellagio, Italy. In February, she noted military interest in the ability to design biological warfare agents that would evade natural immunity and existing vaccines. The theme recurs in a book published in September by the Quaker United Nations Office and in the paper accepted by the WMA at its assembly in South Africa last week. These are all pointers to the BWC review that starts in Geneva later this month. The 1972 Convention on Biological Weapons came into force 3 years later, and the Geneva meeting will be fourth review. No one doubts that biological weapons directed against ethnic groups and arising out of the knowledge of the genetic diversity of populations are outlawed by the existing treaty. Previous reviews have taken note of advances in example recombinant technology. So there are twin concerns. One is the newly acquired ability to manufacture biological agents in quantities and were impractical by conventional methods. Another is the more theoretical fear that from programs such as the Genome Diversity Project might emerge, for example, the development of microorganisms to attack known receptor sites for which differences exist at a cell membrane level. So it is very possible that, oh, you're not hearing me.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll try my best. I'll try my best because I'm new to this, right? It is very possible that they could create biological weapons. Now it goes on to say, what we are talking about here is an abuse of scientific knowledge. If the military and terrorist groups are showing an interest, public health had better be on its guard. The biomedical community may resist the implication that genome work needs an outside watchdog, but the time for self-regulation is running out, right? So definitely there is concern. People are asking questions. The technology exists that they can create a biological weapon based on your DNA. And the Lancet already tell you, let me see now, where it says that a part of the human genome is already available on the internet, right? And when this thing started, when the Rona started, you have a president that let us know it is a China virus. That was what we were told at the beginning of this thing, that it is the China virus. But let us continue. We've got a book from the British Medical Association, and let me look at the writers. And this book is shedding further light on what I already suspect. And it's copyright from 1999, right? And it will further give us and shed light on what is going on. Now we have a Professor Vivian Netherson. We have Dr. David R. Morgan, and it is written by Professor Malcolm Dando, Department of Peace Study at the University of Bradford, with contributing authors. All right. Now I'll be looking at the first page of the genetic weapon because you're not hearing me. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Let me see if I can solve that problem. Hold on a bit. Hold on a bit. I'm coming.